During the time I was a young person, I lived in a segregated society. My name is Ralph Roberts. I'm 81 years old. I am number 3 of 6 siblings. So this photo had to be taken 1949, 1950, 51. My older brother and sister. I was born in the year of 1944 in Tampa, Florida. The way life was for Black Americans in the 1940s, you lived in a neighborhood completely void of the white society. There were a mixture of Bahamian and Afro-Cuban people that lived in the neighborhood in which I was born. Segregation was designed to displace Black Americans so that they would not be in a position to compete and share the American dream, which was equal opportunity for all. School systems were segregated. When you would go downtown to shop in department stores, you were watched incessantly by the salespeople because we were all considered to be thieves. We were not allowed to be served food while we were in the shopping areas. We could not attend the movie theaters or entertainment centers. If you had to use a restroom, you would have to be careful not to go in the restrooms that said white, because there was a separate quarter for people that was a sign that said colored. And if there was no bathrooms that would allow you, you would just have to suffer the indignity of being on your way. Actually, for my generation, we became acceptable as Negro, which was derived from the term Negroid. We felt very proud to be called Negro. The fact that Jim Crow and segregation and all those negativities made us not like ourselves as we were defined by nature. So we had this imprint in our minds that black was the thing that you did not want to be. Eventually, we learned that this is acceptable for you to love and accept yourself. There certainly was 2 different Americas, but the America that I grew up in, my childhood was a very happy childhood. I could only recall one incident when I was in grade school. Somewhere in the mid-50s, I had to be around 4th or 5th grade. I was a student at St. Peter Claver Catholic School who did not allow us to be damaged by this segregated society that we had to be taught in. So it was like a private school, basically. My encounter with racism at its worst form was when the nuns took us downtown to have a protest against a supermarket who would allow us to purchase their groceries but would not hire our women as clerks. We did not receive any threatening posture from the whites that encountered us while we were there demonstrating. We did, however, encounter one black woman who was dressed in her uniform, showing that she had worked in the house of a white family, approached us and told us that we were down there making trouble. And if she had the will, she would beat us all the way home, back to where we came from. That was such a punishing thing for a child to accept, because we were being taught by these white Christian nuns that we were fighting against oppression, and to have a black person come and tell us that we were making trouble. Well, it stick with me because it's so poignant that we had a prominent congressman, the late John Lewis, who coined the phrase making good trouble. And as a child, that's what we were doing. We were making good trouble. During my childhood, we definitely experienced not being able to enjoy or experience the same that our white counterparts at our age would be able to enjoy. During my middle school and senior high school years, we were only allowed to participate in competitive situations where it was black schools against black schools. We were never able to compete against the white schools and show that there was nothing superior in what they did as opposed to what we did. I graduated from high school in 1962. After graduating from high school, I knew that my parents couldn't afford to send a second child off to college. So I decided to go up north and live with my grandmother and get a job to earn enough money to come back home and go to a local college here in the state of Florida. I went to college in the year of 1963, the fall semester of September. That September, we had to ride the Greyhound bus. We were only allowed to load onto the bus after the white students got on first. The way that the bus systems were set up for blacks during the 60s was you were not allowed to sit in the front of the bus. You had to go all the way to the very rear, and you were allowed to only take a seat coming forward to the bus driver until he told you to stop. And the bus drivers were essentially a police officer of the law. Because if you did not do what they told you to do, they could summon a police officer and have you removed or arrested. Very much enjoyed my early college days on campus, being in a totally different environment from high school altogether. You are a young adult. You are able to make decisions for yourself rather than rely on your parents to make a decision for you. One day, I was walking across campus and encountered a crowd. When I looked upon who was speaking at the crowd, a homeboy, the late Alton White, who was a leader, a personality. He was speaking about going downtown and having a protest against the movie theaters and the department stores that would not allow the blacks to sit at the counter and have lunch while they shopped and spent their money. So we were encouraged to go downtown. That caused us to just cast our fate to the wind and march downtown, where we witnessed being on one side of the street and the police arrived and set up their perimeters. Then the whites grew a crowd on the opposite side of the street. We were told by the police officers to return to our campus. In turn, our leaders told them we would not return. We'd come here to exercise our rights. We were told that if we did not return, we would be arrested. So we were determined to continue our efforts to go down and make sure that our demands were met, that we be treated equally. Well, then the white crowd started throwing bricks and bottles at us. We had no defense for that. Then the officers started whipping with the billy clubs, throwing people in the paddy wagons. So pandemonium struck the crowd and we eventually ran back on campus. The very next day, we reorganized because we were told the stories of how the students were being treated in jail. We went downtown, surrounded the jail. We were told that if we did not disperse, we would be arrested. We responded by saying, "We come to be arrested." So then they opened up the doors and we marched into the jail cells, filled up the jails, took the keys away from the turnkeys. All HELL broke loose. They endured that for a night where we just continued to harass them. One of the deputies drew back with a billy club to strike me. A multitude of people that was going into jail. And when I realized I was about to be hit and I turned to him and I looked at him, I had no fear whatsoever of being struck with a billy club. I just stood there and waited for the blow. That officer withdrew his club and did not strike me. That was not because of any fear I put into him. That was the will of God. The very next day, they told us that we would get in a file of line and go outside of the jail, and we were placed on the back of the cattle trucks that would transport the cattle. We were taken to the state fair grounds where we were put into a large exposition hall that had no bedding, no facilities. We were given big pieces of cardboard to throw on the floor and sleep on. They placed armed shotgun guards outside the building. So finally, about 4 days of this, they told us that we would be going to court to face charges. When we reached the courthouse, the judge told us the charge was trespassing. We were on the street, on the sidewalk, singing "We Shall Overcome," but they deemed that as trespass. Told us we would have to pay the sum of $50 if we wanted to be let free and go back to our school. So Alton White told the judge, "We do not accept the bail, Your Honor. We're going to stay right here. Send us back to jail." The judge said, "Oh, hell no. I'm lowering the bail to $10 per person, and y'all get the hell out of my court." I felt that it was incumbent upon me to help some of the other kids who did not have the money or parents could not afford. So there were 2 or 3 others that I helped to get out of this situation we were in. That was my most vivid encounter of racism when I was my freshman year in college at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. This video was taken in 1964. I was invited to go along with my brother and his wife and his in-laws to Silver Springs. However, we had to go through an area called Paradise Park, which was a little less exciting as going to Silver Springs. But it was the only way that we could enjoy the park, but we had to go through a separate entrance that was allowed for blacks and disallowed blacks to go through the main entrance, which was Silver Springs. My professional career started after my first year of college, coming home and get drafted before I can get back to college. I served 3 years in the military, which gave me the benefit of having my other 3 years of college paid for under the GI Bill of Rights. But because my older brother had gotten a job with a major manufacturer here in Tampa that was not hiring blacks 3 years prior to me leaving the city going into the military, he encouraged me to come back home and apply for the position that he applied for and was hired for, which I did and was hired immediately, which in turn caused me to defer going back to college to finish my other 3 years, because the wages I was earning far exceeded what a bachelor degree or master's degree would have paid me if I had gone back to college and quit this job. I transitioned from becoming a bachelor and meeting the young lady who was the love of my life instantly. I had a 13-year-old son. She had a 5-year-old daughter. We became inseparable and became married in 1987. We have a collection of pictures here. Moving to the right, pictures of our oldest son, oldest daughter. In the center is a picture with my wife and I with our two youngest children. We had our first child in 1989, and then youngest in 1993. Life for me, being married, was very easily acceptable because I felt that I had found my path that my father had shown me. Being a husband, family man, a father who was pure at heart, it was easy to me to just be who and what I am today. Being a grandfather is a tremendous and most prolific thing that a human being can be, because you are witnessing the children of your children. Earl, my brother, who just passed away, it was a tragic loss for me because we grew up very close. We were raised sleeping in the same bedroom, the same bed, sharing some of the hand-me-down clothes that he would give me when I grew big enough to fit into them, and felt proud to know that I was wearing some of the things that my big brother had worn. Having him pass was equally seeing my father pass, witnessing my mother pass. It left me with the realization of how human we are and how delicate life is, but also how prolific life can be. Losing a close relative or a loved one, the grief is never ends. There is no end to grief. You only learn to live with the fact that that person is no longer among the living, and you have to recall the memories and rely on the goodness and the happy things that you shared with that person. Your life is what you live it to be. What I would say to anyone, find within yourself a means of communicating with the Almighty, who will in turn share with you wisdom on making your life decisions, making your demands that you put on yourself and others, to show respect for yourself and others. This is basically the tenets of life.